Afternoon, it's Martin from Martin's Engine Services. Will you join me on a dry but very chilly Monday afternoon here in Outwell, Norfolk? There'll be something different today. I'm actually waiting for some parts to arrive for the legendary Vauxhall Vivaro van, and they'll be with me by late this afternoon, early evening. So I've got a little, well, not a little job, but I've got a job to do on my trusty old Myford here. This is well, I'll give you all the potential numbers for it. It's a mf54 or an ml54 or an mf74 or an ml74, also known as the 4-inch precision lathe. Bit of an anomaly, this machine. They were made between, I think, 1940 1944, and less than, I think it was all less than 500 or just over 400 were actually made. And I think I mentioned this in a previous video on this. This is quite most of them were between, if you put a center point in here and a center point in here, most of them I think were 24-inch between centers. This is actually a 30, and they did make a 36 as well as an 18, and there were some various other versions. I've got onto a guy who knows all about these machines. He's got a huge website of machine tools. You can find him on, I think it's Tony at lathe.co.uk, something similar, but he's got listing for all these. And I let him know about this machine when I got it, and he said that's the first 30-inch one that anybody in the community's found. So they are very rare. They very never come up for sale, and parts there just aren't any parts for them. I mean, this machine was quite complete when I got it. I do know this is actually an earlier version, because the earlier sort of first few months of production had these tin legs, and then they went to a cast type, and that was because the motor tends to vibrate a little on the leg, but it works what I do. Anyhow, the main focus of the video today is replacing the drive belt. Now, it is subjected to a lot of oil. My improved oiling system does flood these bearings, and a lot of oil flies around. I don't mind that. That belt's done probably 12 years. It needs changing. But obviously, to get the belt out, you've got to take the headstock shaft out, the lathe shaft out, and the back gear shaft out. And in fact, that cog's actually loose on the shaft. It's not too big a job, actually. It doesn't upset the alignment of the machine, because you're not removing the headstock assembly here from the bed. Because there are some adjustment screws here for keeping it all in line and realigning it. So you're basically taking this apart and sliding all the shafts out. It probably looks quite horrible to most people, but actually this sort of type of machine is very, very simple to dismantle. A couple of spanners and a couple of Allen keys, and it's all apart. There's not that many components to them, actually. The basics of the exercise, excuse me, I was going to sneeze a minute. Basically, you've got to undo these two nuts here that control the end float. That's how you adjust the end float in the main shaft. Possibly got to pop the tumbler reversed off, which is just a screw, and then undo the various Allen keys and grub screws in readiness to remove the shaft, and likewise. So I thought I'd make a video on this, because it might be something people have wondered how you do, and have looked at the belt and thought, oh, that's a mystery. Because what actually happened, while I was machining the injector sleeves out for the Vivaro, I think we can find somewhere it's... Oh yeah, there's a bit here. Oh, there is a bit. It was actually launching bits of belt at me, because I was machining away, and a bit of belt went past me like that. I thought, what on earth was that? And it was actually starting to shred the belt apart. So I thought, oh dear. Now, the replacement belts are all of just under £4 from the local belt shop. So, considering how much work it's done, I'm pretty impressed with that. So, I shall set things up, and then I shall start dismantling it. Right, well, things are set up, but be prepared for everything to go crashing to the floor. So, they've got everything balanced very precariously here. So First of all, let's get rid of this shield. Then we can have a good look at what we got to take apart. Right. Now, originally from factory, there should be a cover that comes around here. That's missing. I could go mad and make one day, but this has worked fine. Now, I'm going to have to... So I'm trying to remember how to take this apart. It's been a while. Yeah. So I should be able to slide the shaft out without taking this off because of my oil pump. But we'll have a go. First of all, unplug the machine, then it's safe. Then you've got to get the drive belts off the motor, and they just wind off quite easily. There's one. They don't get any oil on them, so there's nothing wrong with them at all. And just let the motor pivot down. Right, there's those two belts off. Now the counter shaft is basically retained by a couple of grub screws and a headed screws in here, and that collar on the end that controls the thrust. So it's a matter of undoing that screw, undo this screw, and the whole lot should slide out the end. I am trying to remember exactly how to do this because it was probably about close to 14 odd years ago when I acquired this machine, and me and my dad rebuilt it, so you have to bear with if I get a bit lost along the way. Right, let's freed that off. And now this should slide straight out. Will it hit the wall? Will it make it out? Oh, that was lucky. I've not had this apart since this machine's been in the corner here, so just realised it might not come out. As you can see, on this shaft here, there is actually a slot milled where the grub screw from the drive pulley goes and the collar. This was copying the original because we made a new shaft here because it was quite worn. It runs in these bearings here. Now these bearings do pivot, and they have a lock nut each side, an adjuster, and you have to adjust them to get the shaft tracking true. And it's an absolute pain to get them right, so you don't want to disturb them. Just make sure they're not loose. No, they're fine, so they will go back exactly as is. And here we can see the amount of oil that's built up over the years on the pulley. And I do clean it regular, but it's got a good coating on it. All those will get a thorough clean up. And all these pulleys were were very rusty when we got the machine, but were in fantastic condition. All we did was just give them a light machine up, just clean all the surfaces up and polish the working faces, and they've been absolutely fine. So can't grumble at the old girl. Bit more tea going in there. I'm still suffering with the lurgy. It came back with vengeance yesterday morning. Ugh, it's quite horrible. Lay all the parts out in order. And now you can get a really good look at that poor belt. Oh my word. It's actually expanded with the oil. I will be giving this all a thorough clean up here. Get some of the oil and swarf off and everything. Just checking all the pivot points are okay. Now, this is the back gear shaft. You can disengage the main gear here, pulling this pin out, and then engage this, and it gives you a very slow, very powerful feed. I don't actually very rarely use that. There's a little spring-loaded plunger. I don't know if you can quite see that. There's a little spring-loaded plunger here that pulls the drive pin out and lets it all spin free. I took the nut off of there because it hits on the plastic cover I made, and I very rarely ever use the back gear. So it's more Allen keys. This one is loose, poor maintenance. You go and get the staff. Well, that should spin free on the shaft. Now I remember now, there's a, hang on. There's a little plunger device. I might just slide this out the way, not take it right out. Well, that one was loose as well, so. Yeah, there's a spring-loaded plunger, a bit like on a ratchet when you put a socket on that keeps this shaft in place. Because you don't want this shaft to work its way in while you're machining, because you would have a spectacular crash. Grub screw has a little point machined on the end to locate into the shaft. And that should just move back enough, he says confidently. There we go. You can see the poor old the tumbler reverse gear has taken a few combat damages over the years from people who jammed it in, but still surviving. Must remember there's a few additional spaces in this machine which aren't original, where we had to machine some of the faces up, and so you got to remember where they all come from. So that was well, it's self-explanatory really. That goes in there. I'll leave that gear in there for now. Some of these shafts were there actually worn at the ends, excuse me, and they were complicated to remanufacture. What we actually did was cut the ends off, well, machine the ends down, then press another piece of steel over the top and machine it to size. So, one way of solving problems. I mean, this doesn't do a lot of work, this one, so we're not too worried about that. Now, I'm just trying to remember whether I can slide this whole assembly out without taking that lot off. I don't want to if I can help it. I suppose really I should set to and make the proper guard for this one day, but this was an addition I made. This is a felt seal out of an old British Leyland engine, and that seals nicely between here and the bush, because obviously that's where the oil actually pours out. So, and likewise the oil pours out inside here. There's not much I can do about that really, although I could possibly actually, because it seems to migrate up the inside of this gear and up through the gap in here onto the pulley, so I could possibly machine this shaft to take possibly an O-ring actually. Yeah, I might look into that while it's apart. Now, there is a grub screw in here that retains this gear onto the shaft, so if you're going to run it in back gear mode, you also have to undo this. I forgot all about that. Unlike the other machines, there are no exploded diagrams for this one, so you really are on your own. There's a few pictures you'll find online, and that's about it. So everything else you have to try and work out as you go. As with most Myford, Martin's off again. As with most Myford lathes, they do follow a fairly similar design pattern, so you can get a few ideas from various machines, and likewise, there are a few odds and ends that will interchange with a little bit of adaptation. So it can be done. You just have to be a little bit ingenious sometimes repairing this sort of thing. This part here where the grub screw comes in was actually broken off of this gear, and what my dad actually did is he actually silver soldered, or brazed I think, a lump of steel into this, and then we managed to salvage it because this gear had us absolutely destroyed. If I remember rightly, the insides wasn't looking too happy. Right, I've just got to remove a couple of bits off the back, then I'll bring you back. Right, that was just the two lock nuts on the back of the main shaft. Just two brass nuts there. The Ford, well, another viscous fan spanner came in handy there. Some of the sizes on this we've adapted and modified and whatnot. Just to make a few allowances. Just let the bearings go a little bit. Which is on the move. What you can very gently do is just tease these bearings up a little bit. Just make sure they're not tight. It should. According to calculations, okay. It's alright. Mine's had a dirt moment. It's forgot the thrust washer on the back. The thrust washer on the back has a wood rough key. That's what the problem is, folks. The ML4 doesn't have that. It just says, that's better. Yes, look at that. Undo all the right parts and it comes apart. Right. One main shaft. And we should be able to slide the ball gear out. The ball gear should come out of there independent of the other gear, and just hang on to the peg. There we go. That's the sprung loaded lock peg. Oh, now there's the thrust washer. That'll be the other race off the thrust washer. That is the thrust washer that controls the end float. That lives up the end of the gear here, like that. On the Myford, it's actually ML4 is actually in the front there. Well, and there is one main shaft, headstock shaft, or if you wish to call it. Now, this poor thing has had some absolute brutality over the years. I'm trying to remember what happened to it here. Right, oh yes, this bearing housing had cracked here, so this is where my dad actually made up this ring that's there. You can't actually see that, but in the end here, there's actually a small steel ring bolted in behind this flange on this bush. There's an additional ring of brass around the outside here, which is, I believe we soldered it, or silver soldered it to Unibush, and can't really remember. Excuse me, remember now. And this piece here, this shaft originally was the same size all the way up. But what we actually did is we actually machined it up we've slid this steel collar over the top and then machined this to size to take the play out. The back end of it's absolutely fine. There's, oh, stand by folks, no, all right. This part here, somebody in the past, not us, has actually had grips or wrenches on it and actually destroyed it. This section here has actually been knurled. That's a solution me and my dad came up with. Because it was slightly warm, there's no other real solution to this, because otherwise the thrust washers wouldn't fit. You'd have to bore all this through. So what we actually did was knurl the shaft to raise the surface, polish it to fit the gear. And that's worked absolutely fine. I mean, there are some marks inside there, but it all still works alright. I know knurling the shaft is probably not, some people are going to think, oh, animals, but it was the only solution we had. I mean, you can actually see that groove there. That was from the existing damage. That's how bad things were. So we did well to save that, really. But quite often these old machines, part of the fun is, can you save it? Can you repair it? You've got no other components available. If you can't make a new one, you have got to find a way of repairing the old one. So that's what we basically did. I still can't. No, hang on. We didn't make. No. Think Martin. I think this is actually a brand new bush that my dad made. I think this actually has a new bearing. There's actually an alignment pin here holding it on. That's right, because it's cracked across here. And what we actually did was we put this in his mill, we machined the nut face of this out, and we bolted a steel disc in there, then just slipped through it with some tiny bolts. And then he made a new bearing, and that stops the bearing from moving. I know we did something very clever, or Dad did something very clever. Because that's far beyond my technology of coming up with a solution like that. I remember this was absolutely rusty, it was all battered. The chuck was stuck on here to the point where we had to take this apart and get the chuck almost red hot to unscrew it, get it off the thread. A lot of this was beaten apart. It was in a sad and sorry state, but it's quite satisfying when you resurrect something like that. Oh, here's the rest of the drive belt. I mean, everything is soaked in oil. I mean, I have a real love of machines to be treated this way. Over service everything, lawnmowers, my own vehicles, everything is service, service, service. Whoops. Stand by, everybody's still there, don't worry. I said things are a bit sketchy. Anyhow, well, I've got to obviously clean it all up, and then it's a case of simply reassemble all parts in the previously noted order. So I won't do the whole assembly, I'll just do part of it. Well, actually, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, so I'll change the plan. I think what I'll do, I'll clean it all up. I want to do some other maintenance, and I want to clean these pulleys and check everything over, and then I'll probably make a part 2 of reassembling it. So as you know, to say there isn't that many parts. I mean, it may sound terrifying saying, "Oh, strip down your centre lathe." I know obviously newer machines with CNC control and servo motors and all the rest of it, but the basic principle hasn't really changed. Some have integral gearboxes, some are belt type, there's lots of different ways they can drive, but the basic principles remain the same, and there isn't that many complicated, moving parts to a simple machine like this. Yuck. In fact, one of the adjustment screws on the back of the headstock case in here is actually fallen out. They are subjected to quite a lot of vibration. Obviously, if you're machining something square or hexagonal, or I mean, I've been machining down the ends of crankshafts of the scrap engines to make adapters for stationary engines, and you've got a big chunk of iron on the end. I mean, I do grind them as round as possible before I machine them, but the punishment the machine takes doing that is not kind on it, shall we say. It doesn't matter if these screws actually do come loose, because as long as the main bolts here, which I shall check, are all tightened up. Yeah, they're good and they're nice and tight. Which way has that one got to go? Wait, and there's another nut inside here, big nut inside there. I mean, you basically nip them up so you can just move it, so you can shim it left and right to get it right that way, and then you tighten the main bolts up. So I will do my due diligence and tighten that one up while I'm here. Yeah, that's nice and tight. Right, well, that's the fundamentals of it all stripped down. It all looks quite horrible in bits, but say nothing horrible, nothing really too disastrous. So there's the fundamentals. So we got the pulley there, the other pulley, mustn't lose the pin and the spring, gear off the back. Somewhere there's a thrust washer for it and the woodruff key, main shaft, and just a couple of bits there. So that's all the parts that really are in there. So nothing too serious. A nice new shiny belt. I did laugh on it. It does actually say oil resisting, but I don't think it's meant to run. Well, I suppose actually this is a bit like an EcoBoost engine, isn't it? Or no, sorry, I'm not an EcoBoost. Wet belt engine. So I was ahead of Ford and GM with this one. Yeah, can't really argue with that. As you can see, it's gone kind of springy and jellified. So it was funny the other day because I didn't realise what it was. So I'd machining away and say something flying past, and I thought that wasn't a bit of swarf. And then the bit started flapping around, and that broke off and shot up in the air, and then it landed over on the floor. Oh, there's another bit of it there, just fell out from somewhere. You know, I thought, oh hello, this is getting a bit sketchy here. There's nothing like having bits of belt whizzing round by your left elbow. So I thought, time for some maintenance. And I thought, oh, it hasn't lasted long. And then, oh, hang on, Martin, it's about 14 years. So that's phase one, or part one of the operation. I want to give everything a good clean up. And I'm going to see if I can maybe, I'll see if I can put an O-ring in here somewhere. Maybe I could just machine a groove in there and put an O-ring in. See if I can improve on that a bit. I'm not worried if I can't. I'd rather have the oil going everywhere. And I do periodically like to strip these machines down. I mean, the small Myford there, I tend to every couple of years actually strip that major components off, wash all the old oil out, clean everything up, and put it back together again. So it keeps the old girl going well. So I'll call this part one, and I'll have some fun cleaning some bits up, and then I'll make a part two when it all goes back together again. And hopefully we should have some good progress on the Vivaro this week, but I'm sure it's got more to give. Anyhow, thanks very much indeed for watching. So please like and subscribe. Picked up 2 more subscribers over the weekend, so we're now at 141. So big push towards Christmas for the 150. So let's see if we can all get there. Thanks very much indeed for watching, and bye for now.